We're gonna have to twin one day. I have that same sweater.
Do you? Target. Yeah, well, look at you twinners together. I love that. Well,
Can I just do my Christmas outfits for the baby, or do I wait? Because her due date wasn't until like Christmas Day. Yeah. This is so exciting. Yay, good for her.
So I guess I'm thinking.
Do you want it on or off while I'm just sitting here? Okay.
Like you meant was
I'll just be, am I gonna be super loud if I'm double mic'd?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Double mic. Yep. Was that a thumbs up, Chase? Are you good? Okay. Hi, everyone.
Whoa.
Welcome to the curriculum committee meeting. Appreciate y'all being here today. So our goal today is to finish up with our recommendations for policy 3200 and 3210. I'm going to go over kind of some of the, remind everybody of where we were last time and the shifts that we've been made. And then Ms. Bradford had something she wanted to bring forth for the committee's consideration. And we'll go from there. So for 3200, I know that Ms. Smith sent out the red-lined version of it. The main changes there were to follow up from our last conversation where, again, it was just formatting, separating things out between district purchases and school purchases and media. And then in particular, I think it was section C, part lowercase d. It's on page 3. Rewording that primary responsibility of the school level materials to the direction of the principal. So particularly principals, I just want to make sure that I captured that correct from last time. I got a thumbs up from May. So those were kind of the main changes. Are there other pieces of this document that a member of the committee wants to bring forth to, in terms of formatting or things that I didn't catch from our last meeting?
I just want to ask the question, Dr. DeWall. For both of these policies, the only changes we actually did were just structure and moving things around, correct?
Correct.
So we shouldn't have a lot of...
Correct. I think we did reword that sentence for number 3, lowercase d. We reworded that a little bit based on the suggestion of principals. But other than that, it was all formatting and moving things, clarify definitions.
Now E, acceptance of gift materials. Why did we strike gift materials may be accepted or rejected by the board based on such criteria? Why did we strike that? I don't remember that part.
Let me reread it here. Pursuant to the criteria.
what was it, letter E?
Letter E.
It's a new E.
On page 6.
I know at the
Yes.
time, we actually said if let's say the girls in a club wants to give some books to a school, the board wouldn't have to approve that. Yes, that's considered a gift. At the time, we talked about there's so many different things, and normally there is a policy that we have for the district. If things are over a certain level, the board has to approve. So just because someone donates a set of books, or if they donate something to that level, to bring that to the board is not, that wouldn't be feasible, first of all, and I don't think that was the intent of this policy. That's what we talked about last time. Christine, you remember? Yeah.
I do remember it, but I'm thinking, you know, somebody has a box truck and, 5 or 6 boxes of books, and they drop them off at the school. They're in, and they haven't been vetted, they haven't been approved. I think that's what that was written for, because I know a lot of people donate books, brand new books, not their old collection or whatever.
We have you want to speak to the process of
I
that?
mean, I wouldn't say they were automatically.
Yeah, exactly.
If they were directed toward the library, they would be vetted just like you would vet any other resource. You wouldn't just, I mean, you might accept them all and say thank you.
Exactly.
But then you would go through them and you would only include what was appropriate for the collection. I would assume that the school would do the same thing if a
Yes.
bunch of donations were dropped off.
Yeah. Any principals want to kind of speak, because I know you get books and things like that, and let's say, I'm sure you don't just give them to the teachers and say, hey, somebody looks at those books and vet them, but.
Same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was in here before, and it's being struck. So what was the logic of striking it?
I
Because it
think
was
that-
in here and we were doing it, right?
Yeah, I think the strike came because we changed it from instructional materials, from supplemental materials to instructional materials.
But I don't think we've ever
I think
taken
that-
a box of books to the board. I don't think we were doing it before. That's why we didn't want to be, we were finding we had things in here that we were not doing. I don't think any schools have been bringing boxes of books to the
And we-
board.
I
Have
believe
we?
that,
And it says gift material, so any gift material that's instructional, you don't have the manpower on the board to approve or reject any instructional gift that is provided to a school.
so for example, we had a very generous offer of a donation from a community partner. Our 8th graders study the Constitution, so they wanted to donate like small pocket-sized copies. And so they didn't have enough, for example, for every 8th grader in the whole district, and so they worked with us of sort of which schools had that need, and so that was done at the curriculum level with our social studies specialist. We didn't then bring that to y'all for approval.
Yeah, all right, so does that include our book fairs? Because technically, those could be considered gifts. That, you know, when like a PTA or a parent organization runs a book fair and they can purchase books for the school, they would just be looked at in the same way that we would look at anything else, right?
That would go through the library.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And oh, sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
I was just gonna say that if it's, I mean, a lot of times book fairs, it's scholastic dollars rather than cash.
Yes.
And so those are just, the librarian then uses that money, that scholastic dollars to purchase.
Okay,
Or
and
whatever
then-
the organization
and there
is.
has been no prohibition of any company for book fairs, like Scholastic. We got an email from a parent that said, thank you for getting rid of Scholastic. And I was like, uh-oh.
No, we
I
have
don't-
scholastic book fairs. We
Because I
have
was
other
at another
vendors.
school and I was looking at the cash register right there. Yeah.
But I think it's important to distinguish too, that those are generally books that then go in the library that are for independent reading. They're not part of what is our core instructional resources.
Right, but, so, yeah, so acceptance of gift materials, though, could be media collection, could be, you know, core material, could be supplemental, it could be any one of those,
It
right?
would be unlikely to be core because to do
Right.
that, you would have to have it for every kid in the whole
Right.
district. The volume that you would need
Right.
would be pretty extensive.
Yeah, but I just wanted us to kind of be clear that book fairs, you know, fell into that category, however you do it, you know, through bucks that you use or, but,
I would say it would be unlikely that a PTA would be making purchases with whatever the proceeds were from the book fair. It's more likely to go to the school or to the librarian to make those purchases then. And then they'd use this policy same as any other money.
okay, so then this book fairs really are outside the purview
Of
of
a
this
gift.
policy? Okay,
Yes.
just checking.
And it does link also to the 8220 policy, which is the gifts policy within the
Right.
policy. Great questions. Sure, want to do one more?
So yes, you guys did a great job on this policy, you know, and moving all, I mean, we had a lot of stuff talking. You guys had a lot of stuff talking and a lot of things moving around. So you did a great job in organizing this. It was very easy to follow. But I did have a question, which it looks like is sort of in this new thing that you got. But if you look down, it's on page 2, letter B, number 4. Again, where we're talking about controversial versus complex. So, you know, being the technical writer proofreader, I looked up, you know, the definitions just to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. So controversial means giving, at least the definition in Webster, giving rise or likely to give rise to public disagreement is what controversial, and I know we talked a lot about, you guys talked a lot about what's controversial to some isn't, controversial to others. And then you look up the definition of complex, and complex means consisting of many different and connected parts. So I guess I'm just having a little bit of agita, but I mean, it's your suggestion on, do we really want to replace controversial with complex? Because and if you look up the definition of complex, there's the psychology complex, there's the complex sentences, there's all kinds of complex things. So I didn't know if you guys had really dug into that and this was what you really wanted. So,
I mean, I think anyone can speak to that. I think for me, the recollection of the conversation was teachers often can't opt out of having those complex conversations because they're embedded into our standards in many places.
Complex or controversial?
Complex.
Okay.
Because they're embedded into standards, right? And so I think for me, part of the conversation is how do we make sure that ideas can be taught with, as you said, for complex, those connections to multiple viewpoints, I think is something that.
So we're just steering clear of what controversial means? Because we think that's a better educational approach? Is that what I'm kind of understanding?
A better approach. I guess I think that, I guess I think we sort of came up with complex as being more representative of what teachers are doing when they're talking about issues in their classroom through their standards.
I remember when we talked about this, part of it too was controversial items, of course, like complex. There's so many things that are controversial to you that
Right.
might not be controversial to me, but I think when we say complex, it doesn't have to be controversial to you or I. It's just an item that needs to be looked at or dealt with in a different manner. We talked about this, and I'll be honest with you, it wasn't last meeting, it was a meeting before last, and we had a room full, and people felt very strongly about this, so I think we're trying to recap. Do you remember anything else we said?
I agree with you, and that was the whole point of this sheet that's got the green at the top of it, was to further define what, if we're going to change controversial, I'm fine with it, but I can understand the wisdom of highly complex. This is a definition that makes it just flat out clear. Not talking about the green part. The green part was, do you like this, do you not like this? We want your opinion on that. But the rest of it, is taking controversial and explaining it in context of highly complex to where it's pretty darn clear, I think. But, and I work in words, so what do you guys think? I mean, now seems like the time to talk about this part. Because it goes, and it should go in, it says right at the top, inserted into Policy Code 3200, selection of instructional materials, number A, definitions. It's just a definition of what, if a teacher comes to you and says, well, what is highly complex? What is controversial? This sets it out. Anything that's subject to intense public argument, disagreement, or disapproval includes issues which may have political, social, or personal impact on students and or the community, includes issues that are likely to arouse both support and opposition in the community. That's a pretty darn good definition of what this is.
So to that point exactly, if what I just read, if you look up in the dictionary, controversial means anything that is subject to intense public argument, disagreement, or approval. And yet we're saying that highly complex means. That's why I was just asking for because if we're using this, we're saying two different things in the same document.
We're not saying that's what it means. We're saying for the purpose of this
It
document,
says means.
this is what it means. Are we not?
So I think, first of all, ladies,
I won't say anymore. I just wanted to bring that out that we were contradicting ourselves.
well, and no. What I would say is, this document is something Ms. Bradford, this is a new document she shared with us, so we will have to look at it. So what we were gonna do, if we can, is we were gonna finish with the policy, then go back and say, okay, does this definition meet? And because there's a good point, maybe we need to change something, but first we were gonna say, are these two policies, are we good with that? Then let's look at the document that Ms. Bradford brought forth to see, does it align with what we already have?
Well, Dr. Faison, under B, selection of instructional materials 4, we already have struck controversial and changed it to complex without the word highly. So right there, that brings it into this discussion. Again,
Yeah.
I could go either way. I don't care what we call it. I just want to define whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the word controversial versus highly complex or complex, because the committee, we discussed that last time and we said we were gonna go that route. I'm talking about the definition here. Before we start digging into the definition and see if we're tweaking it, if we can kind of stay focused on.
Right here in the part where
Okay,
we're trying to breathe.
okay, well, maybe
It's
I'm wrong.
also there.
Okay,
It's
I
also
just,
there.
my mind just
So are
works
there-
like, let's finish one thing, but we can go that route.
So are there any other formatting or I know I know we still need to talk about the complex controversial, but are there formatting or other parts of 3200 or 3210 that we need to talk through?
So in letter C, number 1, letter C, little c.
Are you on page 4?
I am on page 3.
Page 3. Okay.
Okay, so in the very end of the paragraph, where you were describing the school committee will consist of, the media collection committees will consist of, you know, the teachers, the instructional support, went through all those, and it says, and if on staff in the school, the library media coordinator and the technology facilitator. And I guess, even though this appears to be what we've already had in there, I'm just wondering that shouldn't our media collection school committee have somebody from the media world, even if they're on staff or not on staff, like as a resource?
It's written like this for schools that don't have media coordinators. Like, for instance, Mosley has a MTAC, that's their digital resources and other things, even though they don't have a media coordinator. So they still do a lot of the same things that happen in a school that does have a library and a librarian, they just don't have one. So they have an MTAC anyway.
Yeah, no, and I understand that. My question was, if you don't have that on your staff, wouldn't you want that resource somewhere, like to somebody from central office or another school to help you out, to make sure that, no, you don't care? Oh, I mean, I just said not don't care. That it's not important, or that's not right either. It's not crucial for your decision-making.
Correct.
I think before the decision would be made, we would be reaching out to someone.
Okay.
You know, so the
I don't
resource,
think it needs
the
to be
resource is
codified.
always
I don't think it
there.
needs to be codified as a requirement.
Right.
Okay.
Our pre-K centers also don't have library media coordinators.
Okay.
So when I was the principal at Howe, we handled everything in-house without having to bring somebody from central office.
But it wouldn't stop them from reaching out to Mary
Sure.
Alice
Right,
or
right.
another person. if
Okay,
they-
okay. Just was clarifying.
Great.
And then one last thing, it's on page 4. It's under C, number 2, the process, down on F. And where it says the appropriateness for the age. And I guess I just want to make sure I understand that appropriateness for age, to me, means two things. It means that we don't want, younger kids reading adult material, too old material. But does that mean that we can't have like a lower Lexile number in a high school class because the resource is something that is worth teaching? And we've had that discussion before, that in an AP class, does it have to be a certain level, but can you not have a lower level? So I didn't know if
That would be appropriate then, because you're not teaching. So when you do that, we often do that, like you said, at the high school and in college, right? Because you're not teaching them, it's not about the Lexile level, it's about the content and the things that you're doing with the content. And when you do it at a lower level at times, they can focus on that and not try to decipher the text.
Okay.
So that would make it appropriate.
No, and I agree with that. I just wanted to say that out loud for future reference.
Okay.
Last time we didn't have anything about 3210, but I'll put it out there one more time. Is there anything about 3210 before we wrap up on this?
If you look in B, number 1, process, that sentence, I think we have a run-on in there, so I've just, where it says, if an objection made by a parent or student is not based upon constitutional or legal rights, comma, the principal will work with the parent while going through the review process to accommodate the particular student. The principal may accommodate, I mean,
There should be a period there.
is there a period, I mean, is there a
In the
period somewhere
revised
or a
one,
semicolon?
there's after period.
I think it's after student.
It's after student?
Yeah, I think we cleaned that up. I think Ms. Bradford caught that. I don't know where we are, but I know she caught a
Yeah,
couple
go-
of
It's on
periods.
page 2. We've cleaned that up, yes.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
on- this
So
was-
it's-
this
it's a
was-
capital
This was what was
T.
left from last time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what's
So-
on Simblies, that's why I was, I printed this straight off Simbly this morning.
But we caught it. We
Yeah,
caught it.
I think we made 2 period
It's changed
changes.
in here.
Yeah, there's a couple
We didn't-
period
we didn't,
changes.
like, It was
Okay,
it was
all
like
right.
2 period changes and maybe
Not a big
couple
deal.
were capitalized.
Yeah, just
Got it.
some typos.
Thank you both for catching my typos. I try not to type
No
too
problem.
fast, but
I can't help myself.
got a lot to get
Do it
done in a
everywhere I
day.
go.
Okay, Ms. Bradford, I'm gonna pass it over to you to,
Okay,
Share about this
going
document that you
back to
brought forward.
3200, page 1, A definitions. Wanting to add this definition that we just discussed a couple minutes ago, so I don't need to read it again.
so adding a number 4 after supplemental.
Well, actually, it could go, things like that I don't care where they go.
Okay.
Where it goes is, up to the attorney, somebody, I don't care. It just needs to be there under definitions. And, I'm thinking forward, in January, this would come before the policy committee, and you have 2 members of the policy committee sitting here right now. So if controversial versus highly complex is going to be an issue, I'd rather talk about it here because I have no opinion. I just want the definition to say, whatever this thing is, means this. So, and I love definitions. I love to be able to look at what's going on and say, this is it. I'm reading it. I feel comfortable with what I know because I'm reading it. I'm holding it. I can hear your opinion. I can hear 3 people's opinion, but I want to be able to go to the piece of paper and tell me I'm doing this right or I'm not doing it right. Again, the green was just something that was left in this draft. Dr. Faison doesn't like it, if I speak for her. And
I just think it's information we already have.
Yeah,
I think
so
a lot of this is just
I'm
things
not
we already have.
married to it. I just left it in for discussion purposes. If I were bringing this to the board all by myself, I'd probably strike it. So,
The part that we had some question about was it's saying excused, students are excused from
Instructional.
and
Yeah,
and we didn't feel like that was, appropriate to excuse them or to take them out. That, an alternative assignment or something related to that might work, but if we excuse it, it's almost like saying, okay, well, you don't have to come today.
yeah. Ms. Bradford and I talked about that, and that was one part we said we had to take out because we cannot excuse them for units of study. We cannot excuse them for things, so that will, I don't think we need to do anything there but remove that, and I guess you can speak to that, Ms. Bradford, because we already have areas where they can get alternative assignments but still cover that standard, because we have to do that. Ms. Bradford, I would bring your attention back to page 1, where it says the board will allow or
Where's that?
permit.
give me a hand. Oh, yeah.
Page 1.
Permit and
And
allow.
if you, one of the things that, and this is just something, just for committee's knowledge, I think a lot of these things we already have in the policy. But I know Ms. Bradford is bringing this to the committee, and, because we, to repeat it sometimes, so people definitely have the information. But one of the things that I said was, is the board will allow or permit something to the lines of the board understands that highly complex issues are part of the instructional goals. However, these issues must such and to that level instead of the language we have there. Because I don't know where the board is allowing or permitting, because what you're doing as an educator, you're doing what you have to legally do to teach the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. We don't teach anything that is not. So we shouldn't be teaching anything just because we want to teach it. So I wanted to ask the committee about that.
Because it originally said permit, and I think it was you that suggested allow, am I right? I can't remember.
No, I suggested changing the whole sentence to something like I just stated, because of the simple fact, I don't think either one is correct, because as educators, we teach what we're given from the state. So, but I think
What about
you have a point of acknowledging, right?
Acknowledge,
So something to the board understands that highly complex issues are part of instructional goals at times, or something to that level, and then they must take into consideration or must keep in mind the following. It's something to the nature.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is the whole purpose of this document with the green to provide a definition of complex?
No, the green, no.
No,
The whole document.
This document, is the
Yes.
purpose of this so that we're defining what the word complex means?
It was-
Or are we trying to impose more action or restriction on teachers? This, to me, says that there's going to be restriction or action required, not definition. We're not defining this. This is like actionable stuff. So I'm just looking for clarification of what are we trying to do?
I think to your point, the top says definitions. So
Yeah.
you have a great point that there's action items.
So I think if we just want to define what complex or controversial, and that can
And that
have a
second,
height,
that
like
second
a-
paragraph, I think is where the
Right, it could say
definition.
controversial / complex, like we don't have to have one or the other. You could have
That's true.
both. And then have a definition at the top that says controversial / complex is defined as, and then just put that definition without the rest of it where it says that parents.
And see,
can
that
do
is,
this or
I
parent can do
actually
that.
share with her that I would, I agree with you
So
totally. I think
stop
we have components
at, you're
that way.
suggesting a stop at like opposition in the community.
Yes.
Where?
Okay.
Stop right there.
Yeah.
Where?
First paragraph.
Yeah,
Oh.
'cause the rest should be the policy.
Because I think to your point about acknowledging that it's part of the standard course of study is addressed in the very first sentence. Consideration of controversial / highly complex issues has a legitimate place. It's in our multiple standards, so.
Yeah, and could we not just include that paragraph for the purposes of this policy, right in letter B, number 4, and just,
Letter B.
in policy 3200, where it's definitions, and letter B is objectives, and then little item 4, and then little item, where'd it
I
go?
or something, yeah.
Yeah, 4D. I mean, why don't we just put it there? Because when I'm reading this document, I'm seeing a lot of things that are from other proposed policies in here that might get us down a rabbit hole that we're not quite, that we don't want to take on this
I
policy.
agree.
So you're suggesting putting a definition under B4, even though we moved definitions to be in section A?
Well, okay, so
Wherever
the
you
only
want to put
thing-
it.
She's saying wherever
the
definitions
Wherever it
definitions
makes
are.
sense.
Yes, wherever
So
definitions.
the only thing I would say about that is that when we're looking at letter A is defining the 3 different types of, like, it's either
Yeah.
core instructional material,
Yeah.
media collections, or
Yeah.
supplemental. And if we added the definition of complex under there, that would not make
Doesn't
any,
flow.
like, that
Yeah.
doesn't flow. That doesn't align to the way that we structure
Does
the
it
document.
fit under number 3?
Well,
Say it again,
Under
sir.
supplemental, yes, it does.
Or does it fit under one? Could it be
It really
It
fits
is
under.
Well, I think it, well, I think it could fit
Yeah.
under any of them.
it's part of core instruction? Could it be a
That's where,
lowercase letter under number one?
that's where it was meant to be just tagged on the end of number one, A1, core instructional materials. It wasn't supposed to have its own little numerical, 2, 3, 4, 5.
But B4 is addressing the objectives for selection of instructional materials. That's all of it. So the only place it's mentioned in the policy is B4, and that's related to the selection of any type of instructional material.
Right.
I'm happy to put it either place, I just want to make sure when I edit it that I'm capturing. So-
And we can also, we could just put that definition under there like a sub-definition.
Like
Because you're
B4,
right, if we
I.
put it with the others, it kind of throws everything off. And that's the first time that I think it's mentioned in the policy, correct?
Only
Okay, so I'll do B4 and then I'll do like a little case I
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
underneath it. Okay.
Is that technically what you're
B4I.
supposed to do? You're supposed to have
Yeah.
two things. Aren't we supposed to have two things? Like, we'd have to have a second thing. Because if you're doing, what I always learned was if you have one, you gotta have a two. You don't
So
just
she
have
said
one.
what
I,
if-
we wouldn't do I, we just do, I don't think, you don't have to do the I, because you're right, if you do the
I
Roman
mean, just
numeral
make it like, just take the part, the
Well, I
paragraph.
think I could be the first sentence, which is that we believe it has a legitimate place, and then the second I could be, and here's the definition.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, got it, sorry.
Do you want me to like type it in so you can see where I would put it?
No,
I can't see that far.
we will.
I can't see that far.
Yeah, and when
We
they get
better.
to policy, if they don't like where we put it, we can move it.
Yeah.
They
can change
No,
it.
no, I think it'll be fine. I mean, as long as we have it where it flows, where
Okay.
the information, you want definitions with the material that it goes with.
Okay, so I just want to ask Ms. Bradford,
Oh.
because the committee made some points about, like, we talked about, this is a lot of information, and is it necessary? So the committee is saying, this is the definition. So could you speak to that so we'll know how to proceed on that? Committee is saying we stop it after the community, correct?
Opposition.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that concerns me is, if you go to the back and it says, under the legal, it says all 5 of these things need to be included so that you stay intentional about not discriminating under Title VI, or V1. So I'm always loath to take something out of something that was prepared by an attorney, just because I don't like it, because I might be messing things up. So I went and looked at and I gave you the note of that's from me, what the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was, just to refresh you, because sometimes it's hard to remember all your different titles. So I can't off the cuff say, oh, just axe that, because we don't think it's needed. I might go home and study it and think we need to bring it back, and I'd be stuck bringing it back in January to the policy committee. Anyway, I just don't think you can have enough. I mean, we just came from, Josh Stein sat right up here, and he talked about where we're going with the internet and so on, and Mayor Sappho was talking about, we need clearly defined bumpers to keep things on track. And this whole thing is bumpers. We got off track.
Are you talking about the 5 things being A through E? So are those, my impression was that those things were all addressed already in here.
In our
So like
policy.
age appropriate is addressed in, I don't have let me look at the letter right now. Right, like I felt like they were
I
all,
couldn't find all of them. I did look.
so like I felt like that was addressed in process. So 2 on page 4 throughout those. So like age appropriate would be there, instructional goals would be there. I know we already had something in here, I can't remember the exact letter, but not compelling to a specific point of view. So I felt like those 5 were just reiterating what we already had. I don't know that we had the
But is it
hostiles.
bad to reiterate? Is
I
it
don't-
bad? Can you have too much redundancy?
I just
in
think
the
it becomes
document?
redundant.
I just think
too
the
many
point of
words
going over
isn't
3,200
better.
was to make it more clear. And so I worry that having things in here multiple times disrupts what we were trying to do with the formatting.
Yeah, because then if I was reading this as a teacher, I'd go, well, this says it here and here, which way am I perceiving it if it's written in different language? I'd rather just clarity in the one goal to know
Yes.
that these are my expectations and this is what I'm adhering to adhere to board policy, instead of having to go here, here, and here to 3 different spots.
So the,
Because it feels like this is redundant of our like this is our policy again. And so I just wonder, do we need to repeat our policy?
If we're looking for a definition to be within this policy, that's what we need to do, is use the definitions.
And if, just from the policy committee point of view, or just me from a board member, anytime you see something in your policy that says see legal analysis, we're stepping out of the realm of a policy, for that. And, yeah, so, and talking, because we already talk about in policy 3200, where we said, which I don't recall ever reading before, in the red, it's, if you look on page 5, letter D, the last sentence says, or does not fulfill the educational goals and objectives of the school district, or violates the constitutional other legal rights of the student. I mean, I've never seen that in one of our policies before, so I was actually kind of hoping somebody would give me an example of what that means. Like, how would we be violating a student's constitutional or other legal rights, that
What
we would
page are
even...
you on?
It's on page 5.
Which
Oh, I'm sorry, 3200, because I'm going back to what your points you guys were making on, we've already got it in there. And so we already have said in letter D, number 1C, that we will not violate the constitutional other legal rights of the student. So we're really already covering that. I mean, to the point of the educators on there that, and if you have it in more than one place, you got to remember to go back and change it in more than one place, or you easily get in there and contradict yourself.
And another thing, that's a very good point, and another thing we need to think about is, just like changing any terminology we're using, any of our 3000s or anywhere we use these terms, we need to make sure everything is aligned.
Right.
So it's a very good point.
So on that note, is controversial used anywhere else?
That's something we're going to have to go
But
and
if we
see.
forward slash it, it may or may not work, but.
I like the idea of forward slashing it. I think that covers both, and also covers like just what teachers use when they're just talking to other teachers.
Yeah.
Well, under this legal section, you had already written highly complex / controversial issues.
Yeah,
It's
they
already
have
been laid
that.
out that way.
Yeah,
So we.
that's, I think we were still in the,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who, you already wrote that down at the bottom. You had already forward slashed it.
I don't think I
In the
did.
legal part. It said the
I'm looking at that, but I would
Well,
have
it's
put it
already
in.
here. I don't know who did it.
I would have
but-
put it in red. Everything where y'all had suggested changing it from controversial, I do the strike out.
Yeah, I'm saying though,
Yeah.
whoever wrote this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a good point.
yeah.
yeah. Anything of the A through E, that you're saying, that you'd want to see all 5 in there. I think the only one not in there is the hostile school environment.
And that's what the note is on, and you go back to the note.
And we have that other places though.
But I also don't know that that's like necessarily the instructional materials. That's the pedagogy of the classroom, not the material itself.
No, I think it's talking about as you're teaching it, does it create a hostile environment, doesn't it? For example, well, I don't know if I could think of anything off the top of my head.
But I would
I
assume.
mean, I wouldn't condone, like, I don't know that the material itself is. I think it is the pedagogy. I don't think that we're doing it right now, but like, I think it would be how you would teach it, not what it is flat on paper.
And we can check, because I cannot imagine we don't address that in other policies.
That's true.
So we can go back and check and make sure that we do.
That's covered somewhere.
Or either wordsmith and put that in there. I would hate for us to put all of that language in for that, because I know we have to have it somewhere where we're not creating a hostile environment for students. That's not what we would want to do, so I know we can probably address that already. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
So committee, could you restate your recommendations to Ms. Bradford and the policy committee, Ms. Craybill, please?
No, I'm not part of your committee, I just was
Well, for
offering.
the policy committee.
Oh, yeah.
I want them to
Yes, yes.
restate their recommendation. I'm sorry.
So what I understand the change, the ask is putting the first two paragraphs from the green bar document into section B, number 4, and changing where we have complex to controversial / complex. And that would be, I think that's just in that same part of the document.
And if you
And
wanted to
then-
get the whole definition in, like, because controversial has its own set, which we wrote out there, means anything of intense, blah, blah, blah. And then, but I don't think it was bad if we put the consisting of many different and connected parts, because that's what complex is. I mean, I don't want to take away from your thoughts on that, because we have to teach them both, so we might want to just,
Where are you?
She's
saying to
actually-
add.
She's just
She's recommending
suggesting
using both
that-
definitions.
That you add
A
the definition of
controversial
complex to
definition
the,
and a complex, yeah.
the definition of controversial.
just so
that it-
everybody's
So
clear.
that it honors both.
Yeah.
Do I see some head nods? Yes, no?
All right, so that would say, so for purposes of this policy, controversial / complex issues mean anything that is subject of intense public argument, disagreement, or disapproval.
And consists of many different, and may consist of many different and connected parts. You know, just so we capture both of the words' meanings, and then you add in, new sentence, it may include, all those other things. But that way, if everybody thought complex was important, then we at least have captured that.
Yeah.
Anybody thought that controversial was important, we've captured that, so,
Both sides are heard.
both,
Can you,
yeah.
can you read it again so I can write it down? And may consist of many.
May consist of many different and connected parts. I mean, you can look up whatever dictionary definition, I mean, I just got that off Webster, so it's whatever you guys think makes.
We generally trust Webster. Is that
Yeah,
a
I
verified
think.
source?
Yeah. Primary source, yeah.
And it's striking highly, and the reason I ask that, because again, it's in that language under legal that's already written, highly complex / controversial, so I just,
Strike, so you're suggesting strike it or suggesting
I'm
keep
just
it?
asking.
I think you should, because it was controversial / complex.
Just stay with the.
Don't put anything
Highly
highly, just,
Controversial /
Yeah, no highlights.
Yeah, just leave the highlight
Okay.
out.
Because
Strike
then we
this
get back
highlight.
to highly to you, not highly to me.
I can do that.
By having it controversial / complex, does that allow for more issues to be discussed and brought into our schools, which, I don't think we want to be too narrow, I guess is, I would rather, because we don't know what those issues may be, I don't want to be able to say, oh, well, that's not in the policy or that can't be considered. So having both of these terms would allow both of those, whatever issues would come up would be able to be discussed, I guess.
I don't think of either of these as bringing additional things in. I think of them as covering what's already in our standards.
Right.
But-
So that we're teaching from all sides of.
Correct, right.
Providing
Yeah.
instruction on all sides of any
Yeah.
potential issue.
And it gives our teachers, because we know our teachers have to do some of these issues, so it kind of gives them something to stand on. And I think that was the purpose of a lot of this, is to give them that leg to
Yeah.
stand on. If,
Yeah.
they're not just out there. We understand that this will come up in the classroom.
Right.
Yeah.
And our teachers are teaching from the standards, so it's supporting what they're already doing. Okay, I'm gonna recap this one more time. Make sure I got it. So, under B4, I'm gonna add the two first paragraphs, and I'm gonna change it to controversial / complex, no highly. And in the second paragraph, it'll change issue to issues, plural. And after disapproval, there'll be an addition of another sentence that includes the Webster definition of complex, may consist of many and connected parts.
Yeah, it says many different and connected, but
Different.
what, yeah.
Many different and connected parts.
It may
and
be an
before you-
interesting sentence when you go to typing it. It may get a
I'm gonna
little
do
weird.
my
You might
best.
have to divide it with a period somewhere, but
So maybe we'll do some fancy semicolon use.
semicolons work.
Okay.
I use them dashes.
Great.
Ms. Bradford also would like for us to look at the next thing that we just passed out to you. And I'm just seeing this with you, so I haven't seen it ahead of time, so, we're all processing. So I think we should probably, read the red because it's the addition.
What's the red?
Oh,
We
sorry,
don't
where it
have red.
says displays in the classroom. So go to,
Wait, so
Oh,
are we,
sorry.
are we done?
I
Sorry, I
apologize.
just, I like to be.
No, I'm sorry.
so
Close that out.
Is all of this done?
sorry.
Okay. Okay, so this is new.
Well, 3,200 may not be done. 'cause
That's
this
why I was,
this
we
looks
just
like
wants
it-
to add
Okay.
this, so, yeah, that's what.
The recommendation was to put it into 3,200.
So-
Back in good old A, you
Got
know?
it.
So,
So we've been discussing back and forth, just in all transparency, does this belong in 3,200? I will tell you that, because you will see as you read it, it's just not talking about in that classroom. So if you'll start with displays in the classroom, school buildings, we do have a policy for displays in 5,000. So but that's not here, just FYI on that.
Since we're just getting this, can we just have maybe,
That's what I was getting ready to say, 1
minutes to
second.
read it.
Displays on the classroom, school building is where you need to, is the new part. And if we can all read that, because I haven't read it either. Yes,
Can we talk about this?
yes.
So I don't like that. I think, I can give you many, many examples. So I'll give you two. First, for Hispanic Heritage Month, our Hispanic students often will do something related to their country of origin, like where their family is from, or where many of them actually were born before they came here. And if they can't display their nationality or their nation's flag, I think that's doing them, I feel like that's very disrespectful to them, and that's not honoring their heritage and what they have to bring. But then the second is, if we do a culture festival or a culture night in our school, and each classroom or grade level is representing a continent or countries, then this would not allow them to display the flags of or materials from the country that they're representing.
look at those last 5 words. Does that not cover that?
Not necessarily. Hispanic Heritage Month is not part of our standard course of study, but it's something that we do to honor our Hispanic students that, like in my school, that's, a quarter of my population.
But isn't that, I mean, is the word approves the wrong word? If it's part of the curriculum, you're having Spanish Heritage Night, that's a part of what you're teaching.
Well, it's not part of the curriculum, though.
Let me
think
ask, because I'm just seeing this too, and my question is, is this sports teams? Is this there's so many times we do displays, so would it cover that or no? I mean, so you can't display, let's say and I'm gonna go to my elementary, March Madness. A lot of times we do things that are with March Madness, where we really get them into March Madness, and we do the sports and all those things. Are we saying we can't display the sports teams?
or a lot of times we do
pennants.
college days, a lot
Yeah,
of times we do
yeah,
like
the
college
college days
days,
were-
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or a lot of times we do right now I can think of at a middle school, they did a pledge to be kind. It's like an anti-bullying that's on their wall right now. All the kids signed a little paper and it's all up. So it's not part of our
counselors with
curriculum, but it's,
Or the
It's
counselors
school
when they
culture.
do the college thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the clubs
have
that we
like their
have.
pennants out by
Yeah.
the doors,
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
show higher ed for their
Yeah.
kids.
And clubs or student-led organizations that have been approved by the principal, we wouldn't let them, display any of their, work. Or, and for, I mean, that's the
I think it just
whole
limits
premise of like,
the culture of the
Yeah.
school, right?
Yeah.
Like, we think about our schools wanting to be representative of the students that we serve and and that might look different for Castle Hayne versus Alderman and what we might celebrate or highlight in our hallways, but, we want to be responsive to our students and our families, but also our student interests. So there are some schools that still do clubs, and so we would want to highlight, the community garden or something like that, but it's not a part of our curriculum. It's just a way to engage our students to be at school and to be a part of that school culture.
And I guess my question would be, in adding this, what would be the purpose of adding this last sentence? What would be the goal?
Especially when we're talking about selection of curriculum
Yeah, I don't think,
materials.
that's exactly.
When I hear curriculum materials, I'm thinking solely in the classroom
Yeah,
setting,
yeah.
not the outside walls.
Yes. And that's what I went to, and that's what I've shared with Ms. Bradford. I do not see this being part of curriculum. We have a policy, we have the 5,000s where we have school displays. So I don't
Right.
think it fits. I think you guys have given her a lot of information to think about.
I also think when we have things in the curriculum that come with displays, like, so for example, there's a big connection between art and our current elementary adoption. So there's some posters in, help me out with the grade levels. all
Well,
of them.
every grade level has a
Yes,
But
they
we,
all do.
but we don't then say to teachers, this has to be up for this amount of time or in this location,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's for them to use as part of their
Yeah.
teaching of the
yeah,
curriculum.
yeah.
I think it would, I think it would also,
Wall panels that you made in third grade, like,
Think about your
you did for a
hallways.
portion, but then you always have, right?
I think it would also create a lot of hesitation on the part of a teacher, like, oh gosh, can I display this? We have a cultural festival this Thursday at Mosley. You all are invited. But really, like, oh, this doesn't suit our curriculum. I can't display this, artwork or this flag or this, let's say it's a jersey, say from a class, or maybe a former student, let's say, that's gone on to play in, for Alex Highsmith. There are a lot of Alex Highsmith jerseys at Ashley and other places. It just, like I say, it doesn't really fit to me in terms of something that, you can display in a classroom.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of recap what I think the curriculum committee has said. It is not part of curriculum, so it doesn't belong here. But wherever it belongs, I think there are some concerns about how we do what we do in education and how would it affect our teachers. Because there again, we want to make sure that they're comfortable in their environment, their work environment.
And our students.
And students, of
Yeah,
course.
student
Definitely, because it's-
engagement and
Yeah.
the climate and
yes,
culture of our
good
schools,
point,
which
very good point. Yeah.
And what about, like, this is one, it's common now this time of year, and I can't wait for it to get started, but when they decorate your doors,
Oh, yeah,
for like
yeah.
work, like, your focus is in your classroom that day, or your holiday, or,
And specifically thinking of like the portrait of a graduate work that the
Yes.
state's doing, we're really focusing on collaboration, communication, personal responsibility. So a lot of these initiatives that schools have outside of just the classroom curriculum is focusing on those durable skills.
And global, the global leadership, yeah, global citizens, that's a good point.
I just don't think we need it at all.
we do not need this at all.
Did you have anything else with this? Okay.
All right. So I will make these changes. I will share it out one more time. And then we will, our recommendation with these changes, I assume, is then to share it with policy. Is there anybody opposed to making these changes and then sharing it with policy committee? What are the next steps to get this on the agenda for the
I've got, we've got the two, yeah.
Unless we get a huge dump from the state association.
There should be no, I've already asked for it, so I feel like we're good.
Okay.
For January, but not the one tomorrow.
Right.
Not happening.
I can type, but not that.
Not happening.
Great.
Are we good with policies?
Absolutely.
I want to shift gears and ask this question. We have this meeting at 3:45, and as you know, our high school people just cannot make it at 3:45. And I know everybody's time is precious. What times, can we go to 4:15, and be finished at 5? Could we cut the meeting to an hour and go to 4:15 and 5:15 to give them time that they can get here and really be vested and be able to hear? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Question number one, are you okay with that?
I mean, even in elementary, it makes it hard.
It makes it
sometimes
hard.
to
Yeah,
get in.
and I respect that. I know y'all come late, but I don't dishonor you for doing it. I know where you're coming from, and the traffic this time of day is just not a lot of fun. The only thing I would think is, it's quite interesting. We do this, but there is no policy establishing this committee, which I discovered in looking at something we have for tomorrow. So we're going to fix that. But so there's nothing set out in policy of establishing it. But my understanding was the norm was it was a quarterly. And I'm thinking that maybe it needs to be maybe instead of 4 times a year, 6 times a year or something. Just shrink the size of the meeting, the duration of the meeting, but have more smaller meetings. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well,
I mean,
I will say to you, one thing I will say before, we normally don't talk about policy. Normally, we don't, this is very, very rare. So what we do is we bring to the committee what curriculum things are going on. So we don't want to, policy is not our normal realm. Like, we've got some things now for next time that we need to discuss that have nothing to do with policy. So I do want to say that. And now,
so when is next time?
it is, we was supposed to be January, but we moved it because this is a call meeting to finish this policy up. So probably March.
And if I may add too, that this is one of those committees that is an advisory committee that really the superintendent or designee sets up for you guys, these committees, to inform the board of issues that are arising in your area.
Yeah.
We as board members are just invited guests.
And not just issues, but this is what.
Oh, not even issues, yeah, this is how we
kinda
operate.
talk
When this
about-
committee
Yes.
first started, it was, this is what the curriculum initiatives
Yeah,
are at each
yeah.
level, and this is what's getting ready to
Right.
roll out with elementary.
And that's
And
what we
also
want to get
sometimes-
back to, is
Yeah.
being able to use this meeting to really
Informational.
get information to you guys, get information from you guys, so. but
Yeah, that's exactly, and also sometimes from state initiatives, like we have a state initiative that's coming up for an audit for our honors level courses, and so this is also a time to get
Yeah.
feedback of, here's what we think we might do for the process, what's your feedback on it, things like that.
Well, and I would think that when science
Standards come.
change,
Yeah.
then that'll be brought up in this meeting.
Yep,
Yeah, so,
Yeah, so can all that wait until March is really what I'm asking.
I think, yes.
yeah, we could, yeah.
Yeah, less meetings is fine with me. But can you do it in an hour? Because if you tell me it's an hour, I'm going to want to go at the end of the hour.
We can do it in
I
an
think we
hour.
can do it in an hour.
Yeah, we can do it in an hour. The next thing that I wanted to ask is, we need to look at the members on the committee. We don't meet often, but we need people, like, thanks, Ms. Noble. We kind of felt like we were gonna have not as many teacher voices at the table. You remember last time we had a lot of teachers' voices, and we really solicited and said, please come. So I guess the question is, how do we want to look at members and get more teacher and principal voices? I know this is not a great time, hear me, because this is December, but we wanted to make sure we were ready for policy. We don't normally do policy, but we have been very invested in this policy because it's about all we do, right? So just want some thoughts about membership or being on this committee, and how we can make sure when we come that 1 hour 4 times a year, we have enough people. Because I look around the table and I love it, but I see like 3 or 4, 5 central office staff people, and we need to hear from the schools. We need to hear about from the
I can just
schools.
speak as a principal, like, it used to be kind of more like, you were assigned, a committee that you were on, and then, when, was that maybe 2 meetings ago, that it was opened up, please bring. That
Yeah,
was
we
my
did that.
first,
Mhm.
that was my first time being on this committee for a few years, that I was instructed to bring someone. And so I was like, great, yes, let's do it. My intern was with me here today, but the last time, like, I had my instructional coach come. And, but before then, I didn't know I was allowed to. So
But we did
now
that last time because
Yes.
of the low numbers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that, now us being aware of that, like, we can try to, think about our teacher leaders and those people that are interested in that. I think that definitely will open that up. And then if we also want to hear from more principals, I think, again, opening that up to, it doesn't just have to be your committee.
Right. I sent information about this committee to all the elementary principals so that if anybody had feedback, they could provide it to us. I think that's kind of what.
Yeah, it's really not, and I really feel like normally we are fortunate to have our principals at the table most of the time. I just looking around right now, we literally only have one classroom teacher. And that's Abby who just walked in, because we have a coach right here, right? So we have one classroom teacher, and
We could all bring a teacher with
right,
us.
I mean, I just asking
later
from
start
the
time, that
committee.
helps.
Yeah, I'm just asking from the committee, how do we get our teachers to have more voice? And maybe we do it where we do some of the, I don't know.
So, I mean, I think that if principals could bring a teacher, that would be a great idea. If you want me to reach out to the superintendent advisory council of all the teachers of the year
Yeah.
and maybe get however many.
Yeah.
I might suggest, nothing against that group, but having a wider, having us just be able to ask, and maybe it's not the same teacher each time that.
We also have some teachers that we've sent.
Teachers here.
Yeah, it is, isn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, it was a
They're
different
the
conversation
ones that
today
are
without the
delivering that
teachers.
And I could
Yeah.
even reach out to that
They
group
need
and
to have a
say,
voice.
who in your school building do you want to elevate as a leader? You already have this leadership position as teachers of the year. Who else would you like to bring into the fold of a leadership? Because you're right, the superintendent advisory council already has their monthly meeting. So if they could extend that, I mean, I can ask that at the next meeting.
Because I could argue that for any of the committees.
Yeah,
and
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
They can't be on every committee.
yeah. And you're probably right. I just think about this committee and I'm looking around, love the people at the table, don't get me wrong, but really, it's a different feel when we have the teachers who are doing the work. We need them, they're in the work.
But for the
And I
principals,
definitely-
just, that's an expectation on us to make sure that we bring them, we can
And maybe
definitely
we
do
bring somebody different each time, just so that you just vary that
good.
perspective.
I will say, perhaps as a former overall teacher of the year, I do think there need to be some more leadership opportunities for the overall elementary, middle, and high school teacher of the year. So that would be that's at least 3
Well,
people.
and normally Miss Sales is.
Yeah, she
here.
is normally here.
Yeah.
We've chatted about that. But even extending it to Miss Carnes and names are hard for me.
PT
The
teacher.
beginning teacher of the year. So maybe some that aren't always
great
elevated
idea. Yeah, that is.
consistently
Yeah.
throughout the year, because teacher of the year is a position, and that's something that we've really focused on in the superintendent.
Well, and I think some
committee.
of them also serve as our curriculum champions, and so there could be some crossover
Yeah,
between that
yeah,
too.
yeah.
The other group that I was thinking of is that we have some people who've done the Southeast region, where you send them to NCAT for
Oh,
like
yeah.
leader.
Yes. Oh, that's a great
Can't
idea.
remember what it's called. Teacher leadership
Yeah.
camp. That's not what it's called. But
So right now, it's just voluntarily, y'all come?
No.
Okay, so how did it happen? Can anybody remember back in the day? How did
So-
it happen? How did it get, because I in reviewing the other committees, because there's something that's changing, I'm like, okay, this one says if you miss any, you're out, and I'm like, oh, where's curriculum? I don't see it, And so we're gonna add it, which means, we can tweak whatever, but I don't know the founding principle that it was established on to know, because it's not in writing anywhere that I could find.
Since
So
I've
it is,
been-
what do y'all
My
want?
I've been
understanding
here,
is
it's been
representation,
Yeah,
because if you
it
look
may
at
have been
who's here,
voluntary,
like
yeah.
I'm here on behalf of priority schools. She's elementary.
Charlie was middle.
And I would like to
high.
suggest that we, oh, you're not middle.
and
What?
Miss Nalepa,
Wait, did you move? Did you move?
Miss Nalepa will be
Come
joining us
because you want
representing
to
middle.
come.
No.
Yes.
We actually,
We are here because we
they
wanna be here.
come, but everybody serves a role. Like he did serve the middle school principal role.
Okay, I got you.
Elementary
You got
principal roles.
You got a list of desires
Yeah.
of people that
Yeah.
positions that you want to come.
And I think too, to your point, your question, Ms. Bradford, is that each committee decides what is best for the way they work. And some of the committees some of the advisory committees have other stipulations, like, for pre-K and for the career and technical and SHAC. I mean, there's a lot of, some of the committees have specific requirements that if you miss this, they already have those rules built in. So I think it was incumbent upon the group to decide, we think we only need, I'm just throwing this out, we only need to meet quarterly. We feel like we can have a rotating, voice, so it's really up to the committee. And these committees are all under the direction of you, of the assistant superintendent for whatever it is. So you happen to have like 3 or 4, committees under you. But, Dr. Julie Barnum has a committee under her. So we all have different committees.
And the main thing that we try to do with this committee is to have teacher voice. So that's why, to say if you miss a meeting or.
No, I'm not proposing it. I just was shocked when I read that.
Yeah, so we want to, it's honestly to have different teacher voices is better than having the same collective voice, because we can hear from everyone. Because it's really been good, this process about the policy and actually hearing from so many teachers. Today is a little different, but we have had, especially that last meeting was really good.
It was robust. It was nice.
Yeah. That's all I had. I just wanted to ask, so if I understand correctly, we don't need to do anything about the members. We just need to remind people each time that we encourage you to bring a teacher from principals, bring a friend from teachers, and that way we can have a larger group and more voices at the table.
Is there in technology a way to remind people that this is coming up?
Yes.
Is there a way to send out,
There's
calendar
invites, those notifications.
so that not just the people that are here, but all the other people that you want here, the teachers that aren't here yet, would be reminded. I know, I love those reminders.
I think that can be done. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you guys for the work. This was an awesome pool of talents and resources and minds.
I think they did a good job working. Yeah, they did.
Excellent job.
Yeah.